Thank you so much. It is now 6:02 and I call this regular meeting of the Floresville City Council for February the 13th, 2020. Please rise for our invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day, dear God, and we ask that you be with our meeting tonight and that we all may act according to what you would have us to do. May the decisions that we make be to your honor and to your glory. And remember to love one another as Christ has loved the church. Ask all of these things in your precious name and for your sake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much for being here. We do have a quorum for tonight's meeting. All council members are in attendance tonight. I do open the floor at this time to any citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council. We have a time limit of 5 minutes. And if you approach the podium, we just ask that you tell us your name. Any citizens' comments tonight? Okay. If not, moving on to item 1A, old business, consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes for the special council meeting on February the 6th of 2020. I'll open the floor to any comments or questions or corrections on the minutes provided.
I still move that we approve the minutes.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Ms. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Ortiz. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Moving on to item 2A, new business. Consideration and action to approve or deny collectively or individually any of the following 5 tax resale offers received to purchase trustee property from a tax resale and that was conducted on November the 5th, 2019. Jeffrey Garcia is here with Lineberger, and he's here to really explain a lot. I know there's been some questions about items, all of the items included in number 2A.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Again, my name is Jeff Garcia. I'm the partner in charge for the city of Floresville when it comes to your property tax collections. And you're correct, we have 5 properties that are here before you tonight. But before I get into the details of those 5 properties, normally what I do is I kind of go in depth as far as kind of informing the council and also the public as to, how did we get to this point where you get properties where you get these bids, for example. Most people see that bid when it's published in the notice of $500, for example, the very first one, and they're like, wow, how can a property go for $500, these days? And so, first of all, when we're collecting delinquent property taxes, our very first method of collecting is always to make phone calls, send letters, and reach out to people to try to help them out and get their property taxes paid, right? We always leave litigation as a last resource. We never want to resort to litigation as the very first thing. So, dealing with most of the taxpayers out there, they do get back on their taxes. We do literally thousands and thousands of letters that go out. And also I have not only at the tax office, but also at my office in San Antonio, we have staff who make phone calls on a daily basis to all the taxpayers to try to get them to pay either pay the taxes in full. Obviously that's what we try to do, but in certain situations and hardships, we always try to get the taxpayer to do a payment agreement. When we do not get any response from phone calls or letters, at a certain point, as your tax attorney, I have a duty to the city to have to go and actually move the property into the process of litigation. Now, the process of litigation, we start off by doing title research on the property. We want to make sure that we have every owner, every interested party that may have an interest in that property. and any lien holder that may have a lien on that property. We want to make sure that we know who those people are and even companies. Once we get that title back and we pay for that, I actually have a title researcher that does that, we pay for that up front. Then we move that property into an actual lawsuit. We then file that lawsuit with the district clerk's office, and by law, because we're dealing with real property, the jurisdiction lies or rests with the district court, right? So then we have to file that lawsuit with district court. Once we do that, we're incurring court costs, right? On top of having to pay for that title processing. Once we file the lawsuit, the very first thing that happens is we send legal notice to all of the interested parties, the property owner, anybody that has an interest, for example, like an heir, and then finally anybody that may have a lien on it, for example, like a bank. We get everybody involved in the property into the lawsuit. No, absolutely, whoever has an interest in it absolutely knows what's going on. They have a property, back taxes. If they don't pay the taxes, guess what? We continue to march forward in the court process, and it may take anywhere, the soonest that we can get a judgment to court is about 6 months. It can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years in dealing with legal matters before we actually get to the court and we go before the judge, and our job there is to take a judgment. What we do on that day in court is I go before the judge and I tell the judge, Judge, we have this lawsuit, we have everybody served that we need to be served. As of today, there are X amount of delinquent taxes on this property, right? If we continue to move forward in the process and somebody continue to not to pay on the property taxes, give me the authority to be able to foreclose on that property to satisfy the delinquent taxes to all the taxing entities, right? So then the judge says, okay, he reviews the file, he goes through it, and at that point he says, yes, I grant the taxing entities a judgment for X amount of dollars, and if that amount doesn't get satisfied, then you have the authority to be able to sell that property, okay? We then continue to send notices to the taxpayer. Hey, you got a judgment, you need to come in and take care of it. If we still don't get any response from the taxpayer, then we send a final tax sale notice. Certified mail, everything's done by certified mail. It lets the taxpayer know, hey, this is your last chance to get to us to make a payment agreement before we put it up for sale. If we still don't get any response, then we move it into actual tax sale status. Once we do that, we get orders from the district court to be able to put that property up for sale. And then at that point, that's when you start seeing the notices, for example, like in the newspaper. We then publish in the newspaper, the local newspaper, for 3 consecutive weeks before the actual tax sale. And then the property goes up for tax sale. Tax sales in Texas are held on the first Tuesday of every month. Here in Wilson County, I have tax sales pretty much quarterly. I just had one here in February on the 4th. My next tax sale will be in May. All of this information is published in the newspaper, and it's also put online from the Wilson County Tax Office and also at my law firm's website. We have a property tax sale tab on that on our website. All of the tax sale information is put up for the public to see. When we go to the very first tax sale, we put a property up for tax sale the very first time. Guess what? By law, I have to sell that property for the judgment amount and the cost, whatever that amount may be, or the judge value or the appraised value, whichever is less. So that's the amount I have to work with at a tax sale. For the most part, the few properties that we do put up for sale, we either get that amount or we get an amount that's more than that. So you never see me having to bring property bids up to the council because you're getting the full amount of taxes at the tax sale. Every now and then you'll have a property for whatever reason. It may be, they may have a lot of overgrown weeds in it, or whatever the issue is on that property, it fails to garner any bids at the first tax sale. So what happens then? This is where it starts to get into where we're here now. If I don't get any bids, and I conduct the tax sales at the courthouse on the first Tuesdays every month, if I don't get a bid from anybody in the public on that property, guess what? I have to strike it off to the entities as part owners. They're all trustees. They hold that property in trust until it gets resold again, okay? And the tax code, because it failed to garner the total amount of taxes that were due on that property the first time, the tax code allows the entities to put that property up for resale again, okay? So that means we try to sell these properties 2, 3, 4 times Every year, they're always up for sale, but we failed to continue to get any bids for them. So what happened here is, and this packet that you have before you, the very, I think the second or third page, you see the actual notice. We put these properties up for sale. We put a little notice in the newspaper saying, hey, we have these properties that we're trying to sell. You know, they may be good buys for folks. I'm gonna have this sale on a certain day. On this particular sale is November 9, 2019 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Come out and see if you want to buy these properties, right? So then it was also published on the Wilson County Tax Office website and also on my law firm's website. So on that day, what happened was, once again for the taxing entities, I tried to sell the properties for the full amount. It wasn't going to happen. Nobody wanted to bid the full amount of taxes that were due on these properties and the cost. And so at that point, what you start doing is, as a resale, under the tax code, you can start taking bids from the floor. In other words, we start at zero. All right, with the public that was there, they start offering bids, right? And at that point, I tell those folks who, once we got the highest bid that I could get from the folks that were there, I tell them, okay, come fill out a form, and this is gonna be a bid that you're submitting to us, okay? And that's what you see when you turn the page in your packet, and there's this form, it says private sale, proposal bid, resale bid. That is the form that I got from those folks that were there at the tax sale, and they submitted the highest bid out of everybody that was there. What I tell these folks is, hey, just because you're bidding on this, because it's an amount that is less than what is due under judgment, right? I have to go before all of the taxing entities and get their approval to do this, because the entities are accepting less than what is due under judgment. And so I already went to the Wilson County Commissioners Court back on December 9th. I also went to Floresville ISD back on December 13th or 14th, I believe. And both of those entities approved of these resale offers that are here before you already. Now, you have to have, it's just like going back to a property tax course in law school, you have to have all the sticks in the bundle to be able to transfer property, right? So the last final stop on all of these properties is the city of Floresville. So if you were to accept here, then the buyer who submitted that bid would be able to get that property and transfer it into their name. If you choose to not accept, then we go back and we put that property back up for sale, because you have to have all three entities agreeing to the sale of these properties. Now, getting into the actual numbers of the properties that are here before you, there is a page in your packet that basically looks like this. It kind of has like a chart down there. A lot of people think that the only thing that's involved in property tax sales is just the back taxes. Well, that's just not the case. To get a property to sale, it takes a lot of cost and a lot of money up front to be able to get it to that point. And so because of that, the tax code by law sets a, if you will, the list right there as far as how costs get paid first before the taxes. That's actually by law in tax code. Very first thing that needs to get paid is the publication cost. Then the district clerk gets paid. After that, you have the sheriff that gets paid. Finally, after that is when the taxes start to get paid. Unfortunately, on the first two properties that are here before, tax sale offer number 1 and tax sale number 2, the amount that was offered at the tax resale don't even cover the full amount of the cost. So there's not even any money going towards the taxes that were due. Now, when you're dealing with properties number 3, 4, and 5, those bids that were received, all of the costs are going to get paid, and then some money would be going towards back taxes. Another important thing to keep in mind is the amount that you see before you that is being offered as a bid. For example, on the very first tax sale, bid number 1, the amount that's before you, and it's on the actual public notice for the city, is $551. Well, that $551, in addition to that, the person who is trying to buy that property is going to have to pay post-judgment taxes and close to $2,000 right now, okay? So it's not just the $551, there are post-judgment taxes. So the question is, Jeff, what are post-judgment taxes? Well, post-judgment taxes are, that day that I went to court before the judge to get a judgment to be able to sell that property, the tax amount was a certain amount, right? It's for X years and for a certain amount. Well, guess what? By the time we get to tax sale, there may be another year's worth of taxes, and also the tax amounts always change, right? They change every month. And so post-judgment taxes are those tax years that happen after the judgment before I got to tax sale. So the guy, or the people that are trying to buy these properties, in addition to the bid that they submitted, are also having to pay post-judgment taxes. And if you want to know the amount, it's actually down there at the very bottom, and you'll see that. So let's talk numbers as a whole as far as these 5 properties that are involved here before you tonight. The total amount of taxes that is due on these 5 properties amounts to $209,000 actual judgment amount that we got, right? What we will, if you so choose to approve of these 5 properties, the bids that are here before you, what you will receive not only in post-judgment taxes, but in the bid amount is going to be $38,000, a little more than $38,000. So when you take those 2 numbers as a whole, you're basically recouping 18 cents on the dollar of what's owed to you, right? 18 cents on a dollar may not seem like a lot, but you have to take this into consideration. First and foremost, nobody has been paying taxes on these properties for years. We're talking multiple years. Number 2, these properties are in the city limits, right? And there's health liens that have to be kept up with. And the very first complaint that citizens from around these properties like to call in and state, well, the weeds are overgrown, what can the city do? So then the city sometimes has to put money up front to go out there and clean these properties. And so, not only in addition to that, every time that we put up a property for sale, we're having to pay for publication costs, and those costs run into the thousands of dollars that we put up on behalf of the city that we never see again. We literally spend $1,000 trying to put newspaper notices out. We never see that money again. So these properties are what I consider, they're bleeding. And at some point, you need to stop that bleeding and get a new owner in to be able to come in and do what they need to with the property. But the very important thing is they start paying taxes on their property, where they've never had any taxes generated for the city itself. And so, while I'd like to get bigger bids for you, unfortunately, we've tried to sell these properties over and over and over. We've given the property owners plenty of ample time. In fact, their rights under the tax code to be able to come back and buy these properties again has long passed by years. And so, you actually have these folks that are here before you who submitted these bids trying to do the right thing. They're trying to get these properties back onto the tax roll, be active citizens, and generate tax revenue for the city. And for that sole reason, I wish there was more that we could do to get bigger bids for you, but unfortunately, at some point, you need to consider the losses that have been taken on these properties and move forward and move these properties and put them into new owners who are going to be paying taxes to the city and all the entities, and moving that property and upkeeping them and doing a good thing for the city. So with that in mind, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to.
Council, I'm open the floor for any questions.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Is that 38,000 divided by all 3, the FISD and the county and the
Yes. And so,
city?
the way the taxes get proportioned out is, and if you look at that chart, basically you got to think of it as a prorated basis. In other words, you take the judgment amount due for the city, whatever money's left over, right, on that bid, you then take that percentage and apply it to the bid amount, and that's how you get the amount that's being calculated that will be received by the city. So everything is done on a prorated basis as far as how much taxes are due.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You said that the total amount of the taxes were 209,
That's correct.
and now you're saying all we collect is how much?
And in the bid amount and post-judgment taxes, it's going to be $38,245.
That's the confusion I had, so it's corrected now.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. If not, I will entertain a motion by the council.
Madam Mayor, I so move to approve all 5 tax resale offers received to purchase trustee property from a tax resale conducted on November 5th, 2019.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ortiz. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martinez. Any citizens' comments at this moment?
Any other questions?
Excuse me, Mayor. There was a resolution attached to his packet. I put it with your steps to sign. So Councilman Ortiz, if you could just read the resolution number that she has with the reading so we can have it approved.
Where's that at?
Wait,
Okay. Don't have my glasses, but it's okay.
I just need the resolution number read
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
record.
Resolution number 2020-008.
no.
Do you want me to read the resolution?
No, sir, I just need the number read.
Okay. So,
Is that 8 or?
008.
Mayor,
Oh, no.
the mayor had it on their
No,
desk with
that's
the resolution. It might actually be 10.
Okay,
Oh.
it's actually.
Right.
Zero,
I had the wrong one.
okay,
I
there it
have
is,
wrong.
there it is, one.
Yeah.
Right, I got it right now. Resolution number 2020/009. No,
Is that?
that's
No,
not it.
it's this one here. I don't see a number on it.
I don't see a number on it.
There's not a number one.
There was a sticky on the one that I left for the mayor to sign, it had a number on it. I
Okay.
believe it's 10.
Right there, resolution number 2020-010.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. No citizens' comments. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Madam Mayor, is that 010 or?
It's 2020-010.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, do we vote?
Yes, we will.
You said all in favor.
Yes, all in favor? Did you vote, Mrs. Kim? No, I didn't vote. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 2B, consideration and action, excuse me, to approve funding for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and City Council, we are represented here from the Chamber of Commerce. In your packet, I just gave a simple overview of what we have done previously. We did not budget for this item. Last year, it was $15,000. The year before, it was $45,000. But we have a representative here from the Chamber of Commerce that will explain the position and what they're requesting.
Thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of things from last time we were here. We were asked why we didn't come in October when y'all were doing the budget. We apologize. I was actually in the hospital for clots in my lungs. That's why I couldn't be here. But we're asking, I know this is late, but we're still asking that y'all would consider. We also want to clarify that this is not for the chamber, but rather the visitor center that the chamber owns. We included I have 2 separate budgets, one for the chamber and one for the visitor center. What is included, what I did to Henrietta was for the visitor center specifically. We feel that the chamber membership fees and fundraisers need to go to support members and to support the community rather than funding the visitor center. The visitor center is something that we run as a chamber to help the city, promote the city, but we feel like the funding needs to come from whole tax money, and there is in the explanation for what whole tax funds can be used. It does include visitor center funding, and so we outlined all of what we spend on for the visitor center. Nick gave me just under $20,000, which, as Henrietta said, we received $15,000 last year, but before that it was $40,000. So this is a fraction of what we have been given in the past. The chamber's doing well, but like I said, we'd like to be able to use our funds on supporting members and the community, which is what the chamber is supposed to do, rather than having to fund the visitor center.
Are you asking for a certain amount?
The budgeted amount, it was $19,000 something.
989.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, council, do you have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you just clarify for me what the difference is between the chamber and the visitor center? Because in your bylaws, it has it under one title, that it's the same.
Well, the chamber, I mean, works to promote businesses and promote, the members pay a membership due, and we promote those members. The visitor center, from my understanding from the past, is the chamber took it on as a way to promote the city and to increase traffic and, give out visitor information. So we would like to separate it out so that funding for the chamber members can go to helping chamber members. Because we just don't, and honestly, we don't get enough revenue from chamber membership anyway to support the visitor center.
And y'all are a 501c, and according to your website, it says the Chamber of Commerce is not part of the city or county government. But you do work with entities. You are working with other entities within the city and the county.
Businesses, yes, ma'am.
How many members do y'all have?
We have over 100.
And what are the dues for the members?
It's $125 for the year. If it's 1 to 15 members on up, it's $225 for, I think, up to 25 employees, and then on up is $325 if they have more than 25 employees, which is not very many.
Any other comments or questions by the council?
Madam Mayor, I had the opportunity to go yesterday and visit with this young lady over here, and she showed me a little bit more on the expenses and all that, and I think they're doing an outstanding job, so I support that entity, but it's all to the council.
Well, we really don't have any money right now.
We're in zero balance budget. So.
But
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I think it's a needed thing for the chamber. They support the city. They exhibit many things, for the city. But like I said, it's up to the city council to make that vote and that recommendation. I mean, well, prior I was on the council when they donated $45,000, and the year before that it was $15,000. So I mean, let's not forget those who represent the city and go out and push for the city. But like I said again, it's up to the council. I support it, but it's up to the council.
Any other comments?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
I have a question. Ms. Turner, where in the budget would we look for these funds, since it's not
Well,
budgeted
you
for
have
hotel
hot
and hotel?
tax funds that you are using and transferring to have staff at the event center. So those funds are budgeted for.
Right.
You also have budgeted funds that you've used, and I think it was $50,000 that you used to give different entities. I know one of them, like, for example, Pina Festival, that you actually side funds, but we haven't spent all of those funds.
Right.
The zero-based budgeting was based off our last audit that said that the city, that staff needed to come before you, and that you have to agree to allow them to expend more than what you have budgeted.
Right.
I did speak to Helen earlier today to make sure, but, to see maybe that I forgot to put it in there and put it in there anyway, and she said, no, we were very conscientious about the hot tax in reference to that. The other thing, and she's right, the hot tax can be used for chamber and or visitors center as well. But like I said, previously it was $45,000, and I know, Mayor, you were closely associated with that in reference to when they had to rebuild and they needed staff and those things for the 45. And I think they were doing some remodeling at the time. That's justified the 45,000. And then there was supposed to be some hiring of some staff to help staff those kind of things. Because I know when you were officing there, Mayor, for some time, that they needed somebody to answer phones and those kind of things. So I know leadership has transitioned, and so maybe a different perspective. But that's what it was supposed to be like shared staff between the city and the chamber to be able to do those things. But it is not budgeted for. And so you have to kind of like, there's always exceptions to the rule. You can make that exception, but it is not budgeted for in this fiscal year.
Absolutely.
And, let me, Madam Mayor, has
Yes,
I still have a clarification question with
Ms.
the budget.
Jimenez is still,
And so we would have to amend a certain part of the budget since we don't have anything left in that line item?
Correct. We have to go back and say what we're gonna do and actually expend those funds from something that wasn't budgeted for. You know, we have another project coming up with the parking lot, those kind of things, that those funds may be used, but we haven't expended all their funds. There was a small reserve, but it was, again, it was not budgeted for. And I know the time frame and those kind of things that typically they would have come through during your budget process, as they had previously before, to tout their case, to say that they needed the funds and what the funds were going to be used for. But again, I think from my memory, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, the $15,000 for staff to be shared between the city and the chamber to provide staff and whatever visitors do. So I know that was a discussion. And previous to that, the reason why it was so much more at $45,000 is that they were doing some remodeling and trying to get up on their feet after the tornado, and they were trying to recover. And we did office with them. I know the mayor personally office with them for, I think, 7 to 8 months. You have to help me out on that time frame.
right. Okay, Mrs. Kenton?
No, that's what I was gonna clarify, that the time we gave 45,000 is because the mayor was housing there for the electricity.
No, that was before.
That was before.
They
So
were,
the tornado-
she was housing there, and also they were trying to recover from the tornado, because there were some expenses they had from the tornado. So it was a combination of those things, they literally had to rebuild it, so they were assisting them for that, and that was budgeted for. And then the request came again for the 15, and you all allowed the 15. But, you know, I will do as whatever the council said, whatever the council decides to do, staff will take that directive.
So, any other questions or comments? Okay, I do have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ortiz to approve to approve funding for the Chamber of Commerce. Do I have a second?
I have a question about that motion. Is that for the total amount requested?
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes, it was, but I'm open for debate on a lower one, because I can feel it, that it's not going to pass, but I'll reserve that.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ortiz for the full amount of $19,989.24. Do I have a second? Okay, if not, that motion dies for lack of a second. Do I have any more comments concerning this? Any other motion from the floor?
Mayor, I make the motion to approve $5,000 to cover the cost of utilities for the visitor center.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Ms. Jimenez to approve $5,000 for utilities. Do I have a second?
Ma'am, before we continue, can we discuss it?
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Ortiz, you?
No, it's,
Okay.
there was a motion on the floor, so we have to second and then we'll discuss.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. Do I have any citizens' comments?
I'm gonna make a comment. With that low amount, we will not have enough money to staff the visitor center. So, maybe y'all could help us find someone who's willing to sit there for free, but we cannot staff it without the funding to do so. So we won't have a visitor center, and we do answer a ton of phone calls for the city, for the event center, for the peanut festival, everything. We answer phone calls, and people come into our office. We hand out, packets, information. I mail out packets and information all around to various cities. We do a lot of work there at the chamber, and unfortunately, without the staff to do so, that would have to cease.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Would like to make a comment too as well.
Fred Gonzalez, Mayor, Council. I live in Floresville, as you know. Just trying to give a little bit of information here. Yes, I understand, and we have in the past, we've used the hotel motel tax to help these folks out, and is very much permitted by the law. In fact, we have two different major categories. One is where they're gonna put heads to beds functions coming into town, and they meet one of 9 categories, for example, supporting the arts. The one category that's different is the Chamber of Commerce. In essence, what we're doing when we fund them, we're commissioning them to do a job for us. And they have the Visitors Bureau, which does that. It advertises the city, it provides information, and in essence enhances the ability to get people into our town. And I think it's an important function. And normally that should be processed through the Hotel Motel Tax Committee. And it's not regular funding. We're looking at hotel motel tax, and budgeting should be under that particular category. I know that we're probably not, or don't have any funds right now. I think it's not a good thing to totally ignore this one or go ahead and fund other activities that sometimes don't meet the criteria. I think this one does, and as Mr. Ortiz indicated, it's a very prominent and useful arm of the city in trying to get people to our town. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. Since the budget was passed in October, how has the chamber been functioning since October to now? There hasn't been any funds.
We're having to rely on membership dues, which isn't fair to our members. And working on, and we have to keep doing so, we run out.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to tell the council that it's very important, this issue, but once again, here we go. It's up to the council, but I would, if council wants to prorate it, we'll prorate it. If council wants to at least prorate it, we're giving them a little bit more. Like she said, they cannot, continue, but it's up to the council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
May I make another comment?
Yes, sir.
In the past, what we've done, we've funded the individual that mans, so to speak, the Visitors Bureau, and I believe that we funded half of whatever the salary is part-time. And I don't know how much that would be, but that's what we've done in the past. And that person is actually doing a job for the city.
How are they?
But in their proposal, in the budget, they don't actually have staff. Which is
Who's the staff member that y'all are gonna fund? That's my question.
So the open, the 10, the 2, I think it's 14,460. And then there's a portion here for the other operations. So the staff would be the 14,460.
So we would pay half of that, which would be 7,000?
Was that you have the staff?
And we need to raise
But I
it to
think they
8,000 as much.
The chamber doesn't really have any staff, right?
We do it because nobody will work for that little.
But who's
So no, they can
money
pay
go
the
to?
other
That's
half,
the
the
question,
chamber.
like, the staff.
But the chamber doesn't have any, the chamber doesn't
Right
have
now-
the staff.
Right now, we're the ones going in on our
We've tried
time to do
to
it.
put it out to try to hire someone, nobody will
So
work for
if you're
that,
not a volunteer, when you're there, you give whoever works that week, you pay yourself.
for that day. I mean, if y'all could find someone who would work for that little or no pay, then
Or what amounts are you talking about?
it's 14, sorry,
How much?
14.
It's just based on the
I just
hours.
started looking at $10 an hour.
It's based on the hours.
Not for what is on the wall. They said we put it out in the newspaper.
That's more, yeah.
It's been.
You got more parents that'll come for that.
I'd love to hire them. Well, but without the money, we're not even gonna be able to pay them that much.
May I make a comment, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I mean, she said a number, $14, but they do more than just 14 hours. They work more hours, like right now. All they're doing is volunteer. All this time, y'all don't take under consideration. But now it comes to a number and y'all jump on them. I like, wow, it's $14, I want that job. I want that job too. But I mean, you know, let's face reality, no one wants to do that job. They're volunteering, they volunteered all this time. Since when, October, November, December, January,
Well, y'all
February?
get paid, right? I mean, from the
Right,
chamber?
right, but
They're paying themselves.
No, not for the chamber, for the visitor center. We don't get paid for the chamber, we get paid for being there during the hours of the visitor center. It's nothing to do with the chamber.
Yep.
We volunteer for the chamber.
But the chamber is not part, well,
The chamber runs the visitor center, but the chamber is volunteer work. The day, we rotate days, when I'm not working, I'm out volunteering, I'm with all businesses. And may I mention that, I know the event center has a lot higher salary, a lot higher pay with co-tax money, and nobody can ever get a hold of them, we're always answering the phone calls for them, so, I just mention that.
I agree with you.
So getting back to the business at hand, I did have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Jimenez, and I have a second by Gloria Cantu. Gloria Cantu.
And what's the motion, Madam Mayor?
You do
The motion is for $5,000.
for $5,000 to the chamber.
But they're saying they can't function with that.
And if I can, Madam Mayor, Mr. Gonzalez was right on point. This is something that could be funded by hotel motel tax.
In fact, it's mostly funded by that.
And it's actually number one, that when you look up hotel motel tax, they say that one of your most critical will be your Chamber of Commerce or your visitor center. That is,
And an option would be for the city to man that position, which I think would be more expensive.
I'm just letting mayor and council know that this is something that is possible.
Okay.
But
I mean, we could sell the building and y'all could maybe run the visitor center at the event center, maybe, I don't, but without.
The chamber owns that building, that's not the visitor center, when they established
Yeah,
it.
well,
It
we
started
could
with
sell
the
it,
chamber
yeah.
of commerce, that's
the chamber of commerce.
Let me get back to the business, because I have a motion and a second on the floor right now. I have a motion and a second on the floor for $5,000. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Hold on, I need to ask Ms. Turner a question before we go. Okay, the visitors, we can put them on the event center, right? But not the chamber, because the chamber's not part of the city, I mean, not part of city hall.
So the chamber is an entity all by itself, it has a Title III number, it has its own, it's all volunteer, they don't have any necessary paid staff, even though they have had paid staff previously. Historically, they've had paid staff. So the agreement has always been that the city would supplement the staff, and it's kind of like half the time would be working for the chamber, and then chamber would pay for the other half of the staff. That's how it worked the previous time, definitely when we did the $45,000. That's how it worked. But I think with the new administration, and they have people, and people have changed, that they're just saying that they just want to take whatever funding that you get, if I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, that they just want to take whatever funding that you all decide to do, and that's what they're going to pay the staff, the visitor center. It is something that you can do, definitely, in one of the two steps, definitely one that you can do. After, it doesn't say that the visitor center has to be the chamber, it's kind of like they go together. At one point in time, we did talk about having the chamber to relocate to the event center and have people come out to event, but the argument was that they wanted to be up there on 181, they have more visibility up there, and that people don't know what event center is anyway if they're not in town, so it's kind of like nobody knows how to get there. I'm not quite sure what mail that you're sending out or whatever information or package you're sending out. I know we have some maps for those, but I'm not quite sure whatever it is. But I know they have brochures, and at one time we had a brochure here. So it's, like I said, it is a hard question to do, like I said, but they're splitting whatever the funding is. But the chamber and utilities, that's the chamber. That building is there. They permitted, it's their building, they bought it. It used to be like Pepto-Bismol pink before the time. But it's a new building that they purchased and went into debt for. So that was really something. I know you all have a memory of that better than I do.
Well, one distinction I think we need to understand, the only thing that we're expendable for us is the Visitors Bureau, not the chamber.
Right.
So, but they have a position dedicated to that, as I understand.
Yes.
And we don't need a building, I can do everything I need to from
The
home.
building was never our issue. The chamber always wanted the building, so that was never part of that was never part of us. Was the chamber always insisted on having their building.
Well,
And the agreement that you all have in your location is the school that you all stay there rent-free, that's a chamber thing. That was never an issue for the city. We never came with that. So, before you, are you going to fund the visitor center or not, if we just get to the crux of it?
Okay, but first and foremost, I have a motion and a second on the floor. I need to do something with that one. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of $5,000 to the Chamber of Commerce, please raise your right hand. Okay, that motion dies. So, council, I will entertain another motion if you so choose.
Madam Mayor, I so move to prorate this motion of this amount fee, 19,000, to as the months have passed by, prorated. Which I think it's a little bit more, but not much, but it's better than 5,000.
Can we get an amount of that for the motion? So that our motion is clear?
A little bit over
What is your fiscal year?
9,000.
At the visitor, what's your fiscal year?
9,000.
Right.
July? You got 6 months left?
At 19,000.
19, so it's 20 and
So you're making a
25.
motion for everything, not
Your
just
fiscal year, your
to
budget.
pay the employee? It's for everything?
What is your motion, Mr.
Prorated, like I said, prorated from 19,000, what was it?
When you divide the 19,989.24 divided by your 12 months in a year, you
Right.
get $1,665.77 a month. So,
Your fiscal year starts in July, you said? So you got 6 months left in the year.
So,
Half of-
But our
half
next
of that.
opportunity for funding was
so how much
So
is
how
that?
much would that be, 1, 2, 3, 4?
so if we do it at 6 months, it's $9,994.62.
It's better than 5.
9,000?
So that's the motion I make, Madam Mayor?
Okay. That was 9,000.
$9,994.62.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Ortiz to approve the amount of $9,994.62 to the Chamber of Commerce for this year. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second on the floor. Any citizens' comments on this motion?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I really highly recommend that you try to work with the entities around us, like with EDC. When you're doing events such as ribbon cuttings, we shouldn't have 2 ribbon cuttings for one place of, one new business. I think it'd be more advantageous for us to try to work together. I know it says that y'all are separate, but maybe that's something we can look at in the future if that's going to continue. That way we can make sure that if we're going to include funding, that it would be an automatic and not a thought after the fact.
We leave it up to the businesses, what they want, so we try to cater to them.
I'm talking about as an entity of the.
Yeah, but we try to work with the
Great.
businesses, we try to serve them, so we'd rather do what they want than, they just want one ribbon cutting, that's up to them. So like, our job is to help the businesses, and that's really where it comes down to us.
But we're trying to build some, like Lucia said, we're trying to build some synergy to work together.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, we're open to working
Right.
with them on that, to rep to Floresville, because if you do the math on the chamber, at 100 businesses at $100, that's $10,000, and
Yeah.
you're getting that right now from the city. So we need the face to be
Because y'all are-
as a
yeah,
unity,
y'all-
the
y'all are
chamber, the city, and
promoting
not
economic
not
growth.
separate but together, so we'll be open to that.
Yeah, y'all are like parallel to each other, promoting business development, and so we can do more together.
So some of the businesses want 2 ribbon cuttings?
Because some businesses are chamber members, they sign up as a chamber member, so that's like its own separate deal.
So they don't want to do it with the city, is that what you're saying, or?
They wanted to, our last one, we did both the city ribbon cutting and the chamber ribbon cutting. We asked them what they wanted, and they wanted both of them, so.
You ask the owners?
Mayor, I have questions for clarification. I understand it's 9,000, whatever that number is, for 6 months. So does that mean that 6 months, prior, 6 months left to operate the center, so the center is to pay for the 6 months remaining in the year going forward. And then when it comes to budget time, we'll still have the visit center, or is it 6 months prior and then it closes down? That's why I just need clarification on that. The 6 months is
I
paid
assumed
for.
it was the first that you said.
So the 6 months meaning that they're gonna fund the 6 months going forward, and that not necessarily to retro pay them, and then they're gonna go ahead and close it down, because they've already operated 6 months without funding. 6 months.
That's how I
going forward.
understood it.
Is that how you all understood that?
Yeah, that's how I understand
Okay.
it.
We'll get you to July and then you have time to talk.
And then that's
That'll
when
be
we'll
budget
start
season for the
budgeting
city.
again for
Okay,
next
So
year.
next October.
Yeah.
Yes.
So where would the money come from, Henrietta?
Well, it's gonna have to come from hotel motel tax. Helen is not here today because we didn't have any funds. She'll have a budget
Sure.
amendment, she'll have a budget amendment for you at the next meeting when she makes a report, because she is scheduled to make the report on your finances at the next meeting. And so, based on your vote today, she'll have a budget amendment for you to approve at the next meeting.
Thank you.
I also have another thing
We
to
still
say.
open for comments on this?
Let me, let Mrs. Martinez and then
Sure.
Fred, and then we're gonna vote on it.
Sure.
We're gonna vote.
You were saying a while ago that you have to answer a lot of calls for the event center. I would appreciate it, maybe y'all could document how many calls you have to answer for them.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Again, I would recommend highly that whatever monies we're authorizing here will be dedicated and spent solely on the person staffing the bureau, the Visitor's Bureau. Anything else doesn't come under that.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I have a motion and a second on the floor for the amount of $9,994.62. All those in favor?
Could you repeat that, Mayor?
Yes,
9,000?
yes, it's $9,994.62.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. Okay, moving on to item 2C, consideration action to approve naming the Floresville, the city of Floresville amphitheater after Councilman Gerard Jimenez, Mayor Pro Tem, can't you?
Yes, I want it named after Joe Jimenez, the new amphitheater that we're making.
Okay. Any discussion on this by council or any citizens' comments concerning this? Okay, if not, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, 3 seconds. Oh, so, Jay, and council, I have a second by J.D. Minutes. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Moving on to item 2D, and we'll get an update pretty soon on all the park projects
Yes,
out there.
yes, ma'am, you'll have an update on the park program very soon.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item D, I have been asked to table this item, from the city manager, consideration action to approve the memorandum of understanding agreement between the Floresville Economic Development Corporation and the city of Floresville.
Yes, we've been working, Sylvia had a workshop with FADC. On Monday, we've been working very hard on some grants, and so we haven't been able to finalize everything, so I'm asking, please forgive us. If you could table this item, it should be ready for next week.
The number E.
Number D? D. Do I have a motion by council?
I make a motion to table this item for the next meeting.
Okay, a motion by Mrs. Martinez, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cantu. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Moving on to item E, consideration action adopting resolution 2020-006 to adopt the Karnes Wilson County's multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation action plan in its entirety.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm not going to say that 3 times, so I may not make it through. Just to remind you and to definitely make sure that you understand, Jay, the City of Floresville and county and other entities have come together to put together a hazardous mitigation action plan. We've been doing so, we had public hearings and things such as that, and so this is the final one. It is made up of different entities, and Wilson County is one of them. We had our public hearings, and so they're asking at this time to pass this resolution. This will allow us, in case of a tornado or storm, to apply for any different funding, and so we're asking for you to approve it at this time.
Okay. Any questions from the council for Mrs. Turner? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution. Is that
Yes, and for the record, Councilwoman, would you mind just reading the caption into the record?
yes, resolution for the city of Floresville approval of Crumbs County, that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Wilson County, multi-jurisdictional hazards, mitigation action plan 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second on the floor. Any citizens' comments? If not, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you very much. Moving on to item F, consideration and action to approve resolution 2020-008 for the Wilson Area Children's Foundation 2020 Cowboy Breakfast. I know I saw Lou Rosenberg here.
That's okay.
She's gonna have something.
Do we can just approve it, right?
Yes, we
Okay, I
have.
move to approve the resolution 2020-008.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, but we also have its creator here, Mr. Rosenberg, if you'd like to address the council on anything pertaining to this resolution?
Madam Mayor, we have floor on the, we have a vote on the floor. A
Yeah.
motion?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Second.
Who's second?
One. Any citizens' comments or any comments by the presenter?
Yes, ma'am.
We jumped the gun, sorry.
That's all right. I had to do a item necessary, and I apologize. This item is something we've done for a number of years. As you know from the folder we passed out, Cowboy Breakfast is now in its 18th year. This is something that's Emmett Rotter and I started down when I had a little piece of property down 424, or what used to be called Slaughterhouse Road. And it's moved from the boat park to the pavilion for the Catholic Church, the show barn, and now it's at the Civic Center where we are glad to be. This is a little bit early for us this year because Cincinnati got ahead of us for the date, so we're moving now to what's Leap Saturday. That doesn't mean we won't do it in the intervening years. But what we do now is a little broader than what we used to do, and I would like to take just a second to explain it. It's set up in resolution, but we do get some money from Valero, and this will be our 4th year to get a grant from Valero. And we got a grant from the Dixie Winger Foundation, and then this is our primary funding event. We try to raise about $25,000 to $35,000, depending on how many tables we sell and how many people bid items. But what we use the money for are 3 major things. One, we started this out as funds for Christmas and Thanksgiving. We get all these names from the school districts, and we're participating now with all of the school districts, including the Nixon Smiley School District. The Back to School clothing program is actually our most successful and one that's the most appreciated. And I have been a little bit tenacious about that because I insist that I write those checks. And the reason I mention it to you is most people don't know that in the Floresville School District, 54% of the folks are eligible for food at the school lunch programs, including the summer. So that tells you a little bit about the need. While we all think of the oil business and its prosperity, the need for this program or programs like this are very real. And especially now that I've seen the kids that grow up and the mothers and fathers, but mostly mothers in the program, come through with their kids. We do this the Saturday after the free tax Saturday on our own tax money, our own tax exemption, excuse me. And we normally do something around 80 to 90, sometimes 100 kids, and this is welcomed by the parents. The other thing we started last year was a scholarship program, and we had a scholarship, 2 of them at each of the school districts, 3 at Floresville. This is designed to help people, for those that would be qualified for a junior college or some kind of program like welding or electrical or whatever. And believe it or not, the community does need plumbers, does need welders and so forth, and so those kids and those families are very receptive. So without further ado, we know that you're going to participate in a table, And we know that you've supported us in the past, for which we're grateful, and appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And thank you, and hope that you'll support this with your attendance as well. And the spatulas you have, if you hold those up for Mr. Riffs, that'll tell you that they're all going to be cookers and participants.
Oh, there was
I miss Mr. Ortiz.
I don't have one.
So I guess
Thank you very much.
It starts at 4.
Mr. Rose.
I'm the only guy here, so, you know. Thank you, ladies.
That's a nice try.
Thank you very much.
Actually, this will go to my husband.
They're gonna picture that.
Thank you.
Mr. Lou, I just want to say thank you because I've gotten a lot of phone calls from people that really, really appreciate, especially the back-to-school clothes, and they're very, very grateful.
Yes.
So, thank you very much for what you do, and
Well, you're-
you are very much appreciated.
You're welcome, and we see that in the looks on those mothers when they go through the line. And actually what's happened, because Walmart gives us 2 lines, and we do that from about 8:30 till noon. And it's interesting to watch, somebody misses the 50, they'll come in with 55 or 60 bucks, and we're paying 50. And some other people will step forward and say, I'll make up the difference. But I know this is very important, particularly if you have 4 or 5 children. And it puts them in a position where they can go back to school and be proud to do so. So,
Thank you so
And
much.
also, Lou, I would like to, as speaking for the Floresville Independent School District, our ROTC recipient really appreciated the scholarship.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
I have a motion on the floor. Mrs. Cantu, would you read again the resolution for this item?
A resolution of the city of Floresville, Texas, resolution number 2020-008, a resolution of the city of Floresville, Texas, in support of the Wilson Area Children's Foundation, 18th Annual R&R Cowboy Breakfast, Saturday, February the 29th, 2020, at the Floresville Event Center, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Thank you. I have a motion and I have a second by Mr. Ortiz. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item G, consideration and action to approve resolution 2020-009, adopting the new permit fees.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I know we don't like necessarily raise fees or anything like that. This is not this type of resolution in this case. So just if I can give a 1 second here to explain, what I need to explain is that the Texas changed the law on how you can calculate permits. It used to be based on valuation, so how much it was. Now they changed the square footage. And so in doing so, we need to change our orders because we're basing it off of, even though it's the state law, we need to be able to change how we calculate permits. This was not necessarily in our favor because, of course, I read the charge on the value of those $500,000 homes rather than the square footage. But that state says you have to charge based on the square footage. So we've gone back and forth, and we have Vera Veritas. And Vera Veritas is our third-party construction inspection company, where they actually help us write the permits. And so most of these fees goes to them. We add on additional fees for administration. But most of this, we need to make sure. If we don't change this, what will happen is that we have to charge the fees that we're doing, and we're going to actually not cover our cost with Veritas. So we have this thing, we have this resolution in front of you. We've reviewed it with the attorney. These are the numbers that they're saying that we need to be able to do, and we're asking that you pass that. At your last meeting that you approved 107 homes, so we need to make sure that our permits are reflecting us as they should be. And so that's why that's coming before you. Otherwise, if you don't, I have to call the old fees, and I'm really trying to make sure that you get what's fair and equitable.
Is there any questions by the council for Mrs. Turner pertaining to any of these fees that are in front of you?
That's gonna read, that's okay. The charter section 3.12, where it says that you're the one that makes those decisions.
Yes, it's based on the agreement that you all have already put in place, that you have for Vera Veritas. They do most of our residential inspections. When we're doing homes and new construction, they also do all the commercial. The small things that we do, a typical shed or those small things like a fence, those kind of small permits are just basically $100. But this is actually talking about new construction.
I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Ortiz. Any citizens' comments pertaining to the permit fees? Okay, if not, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, I appreciate it.
And then moving on to item H.
Last but not least, this is for the high-tech people. Okay, so back when we had our budget time, we actually hired a new company called Barcom. And Barcom did an assessment of all of our computers because it's gone from Series 7 to 10. And at that time, they didn't know because they had done an assessment, and they said they'd come back to you. And so coming back to you, as you see on the second page, they have to say that these are all the computers, I believe there's a total of 22, that need to be replaced. They have it broken down per department that need to be replaced for the upgrade. So if they're, so for example, the judge's computer is antiquated in municipal court. We need to upgrade his computer because they won't no longer support it, and the environment is going to die. And so it's time. 2020 is the year that you have to be able to do that. And so that cost is $17,000. And then you have the cost of the hardware that you have to purchase, and there's rights to do that. And then they have the cost there per each one of those computers. And then you also see the installation and those kind of things. So the total comes to $35,763.46. The city manager only has signature authority of up to $25,000. So that's why this is before you. But even if it was 25, I still want to bring it before you because that was an open-ended question. When we had the budgeting, we didn't know how much or how many computers. I do need you to understand that we also have computers in each one of our vehicles that are having the same problem. But we have our new detective that's actually out there trying to find funding for that to replace, and I believe those are somewhere in 16 or 17 in the police vehicle. 17 of the computers that's in the laptops that are in the police cars. I need to also be upgraded, but it's not in this package. And I'm saying that because they may come back to you for partial funding for that, but we are up for a grant to replace all those computers as well. So that is the cost that we have. Of course, we're charging per department. That's why we listed police department, but COF, City of Floresville, you can see the police department, but it's across the board. There's not one department or other. We also are bringing ourselves up to standard, so they're going to have a standard type of computer package that we put together. And as we add on or buy new computers, as we will have to do in the future, this is the standard going forward. There is a 6-week lead time on these computers because everybody's buying them, because everybody's getting phased out. So I just need to let you know that it'll happen over time in different departments, but it is 6 weeks lead time. So I'm asking for your approval. Once you approve, we definitely will have the finance director to tell you where we were able to take those funds from.
And we talked about this during the budget, but we knew this was coming up.
Yes, ma'am.
Any
Okay.
questions?
Ms. Turner, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
We're upgrading some, or
Okay, so the computers that are 2007 or the 07 series are antiquated. And so you have to upgrade to 010. If you don't upgrade, eventually those computers will die.
Okay.
And then the person will no longer have that. One won't talk, they won't be able to save that data. Ms. James looks like she knows exactly what I'm talking about. So it's happening, it'll happen again. They do this every 3 to 5 years. And so what they'll start us doing is start, slowly phasing it out for us to recycle to get more going forward so that we no longer have to play catch up. But like I said, it's 22 computers. And for each computer, you have to buy licenses for those computers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
I
you.
go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and approve this.
I have a motion on the floor by Mrs. Martinez to approve the purchase of the office equipment. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Jade Jimenez. Any citizens' comments? If not, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And with no further business on the agenda, this meeting is now concluded at 11 minutes after 7 o'clock.